If a man disrespects you today, how will you respond? Will you lash out, letting anger dictate your reaction? Will you try to prove yourself, seeking validation from someone who doesn't deserve your energy? Or will you remain composed, unshaken, and in complete control? How you respond in these moments determines not only how others perceive you, but also how much control you have over yourself. Disrespect is not an attack, it is a test. Most men fail because they react emotionally, letting another man dictate their actions. They argue, they defend, and they try to prove their worth. But the moment you react impulsively, you hand over your power. A Stoic understands that disrespect is never about him. It is a reflection of the other person's frustrations, insecurities, or need for control. He does not internalize the insult, nor does he waste time on pointless battles. Think of the strongest men in history: leaders, warriors, thinkers. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet remained unmoved by the words of lesser men. Seneca was attacked by the powerful, yet never lowered himself to their level. Their strength was not in retaliation, but in their unshakable composure. True dominance is not about controlling others, it's about controlling yourself. Today, we break down the ultimate Stoic guide to handling disrespect like a king. By the end, you will know how to command respect without ever raising your voice. The question is, are you ready to rise above? One, disrespect is never about you. Have you ever been insulted and felt the urge to fight back? Have you ever been disrespected and thought, why would they say that to me? What if I told you that disrespect is never about you? What if I told you that the man who disrespects you today isn't revealing anything about you? He's exposing himself, his weaknesses, his insecurities, his need for control. Yet most men don't see it this way. They take it personally. They react. They let the words of another man dictate their emotions, their energy, and even their self-worth. But what if you stopped seeing insults as personal attacks? What if instead you saw them for what they really are, a reflection of the other person's character, not yours? That is the Stoic mindset. That is how you turn disrespect into indifference and indifference into power. Disrespect is never a measure of your value. It is always a mirror of the man throwing it. A strong, confident man does not insult others. He does not seek to tear people down to elevate himself. A man who ridicules, belittles, or disrespects you is revealing far more about his own state of mind than anything about yours. He is showing you his own frustration, his own insecurity, his own weakness. And the moment you recognize this, you stop taking it personally. You stop wasting your energy trying to prove something to people who were never worth your validation in the first place. The truth is, a man's words don't define you. Your reaction to them does. You're walking down the street, and out of nowhere, a stranger hurls an insult at you. Your instinct is to react, to defend yourself, to fight back. But pause for a moment. This man does not know you. You do not know him. So why would his words hold weight? Why would they shake your composure? If a madman on the street screamed nonsense at you, would you argue with him? No, you'd walk past, unaffected, because his words mean nothing. Now apply that same logic to disrespect. If a person is so weak, so consumed by their own problems that they need to insult a stranger, what does that say about them? Not you. You're in a meeting, presenting an idea, and a colleague immediately tries to tear it down. Most men would feel disrespected, maybe even embarrassed. They'd feel the need to argue, to defend their intelligence, to prove their worth in front of the room. But a Stoic does not react that way. A Stoic knows that a man who undermines others in public is not strong. He is insecure. He needs to prove his worth by diminishing yours. That is not power. That is weakness disguised as confidence. A real man does not tear others down. He leads by example. He does not fight every battle. He chooses which ones are worth his time. In most battles, most are nothing more than noise. You post something online and a stranger in the comments insults you. They mock your thoughts, your words, your beliefs. Most people would feel the urge to respond, to engage in a war of words, to prove a point. But ask yourself, is this really worth your energy? Is this battle worth fighting? 99% of the time, the answer is no. When a man insults you, he expects you to react. He wants your attention, he wants your energy, and when you don't give it to him, you strip him of his power. He becomes nothing. Silence is your weapon. Indifference is your strength. Nothing frustrates a weak man more than being ignored by a strong one. There is an old saying, "A lion does not concern himself with the opinions of sheep. A king does not argue with peasants. A true leader does not waste time proving himself to those who do not matter." And the truth is, most people who insult you, who disrespect you, do not matter. They are background noise in your life. The moment you understand this, you become untouchable. The moment you realize that their words say nothing about you, but everything about them, you gain control. The next time someone disrespects you, pause. Instead of reacting, ask yourself, is this about me or is this about them? Because almost always, it has nothing to do with you. A weak man fights every battle. A Stoic picks his battles wisely. A man who controls his emotions controls the room. Disrespect is not an attack, it is a test. The question is, will you pass it? From this moment forward, commit to never taking disrespect personally again. Practice observing, not reacting. See through their words, not into them. Understand that real power is never in retaliation, it's in control. The man who masters himself masters everything. 2. Control your emotions. Control the game. There is no greater weapon than self-control. No greater weakness than emotional outbursts. The moment you let anger dictate your actions, you become predictable, easy to manipulate, and powerless. A man who cannot control his emotions is a man who can be controlled by anyone. But a man who masters his emotions, he becomes untouchable. Disrespect is a trap. The moment you react impulsively, you fall into it. You hand over control to the one provoking you. They say something to trigger you, and you give them exactly what they want, a reaction. Now they own the conversation. Now they dictate the outcome. You think you're defending yourself, but in reality, you're dancing to their tune. You've become reactive instead of intentional. You've become a puppet whose strings are pulled by external words and actions. Think about the most powerful men in history. The leaders, the warriors, the masterminds. Were they the ones shouting in anger? Were they the ones lashing out in the heat of the moment? No, they were the ones who remained calm when others lost their minds. They were the ones who dictated the game because they never let their emotions betray them. A man who stays composed under pressure forces the world to adjust to him. Picture a high-stakes negotiation. Two men sit across from each other. One raises his voice, slams his fist on the table, and tries to intimidate the other with his rage. The other man? He stays silent. He listens. He observes. His face doesn't change. His breathing remains steady. Who holds the real power in this moment? Not the man yelling, the one who stays calm. Because the one who is calm is the one who is in control. Now imagine this in everyday life. A stranger disrespects you in public, trying to provoke you. The moment you react, you prove that his words have power over you. But if you remain composed, if you refuse to give him the emotional reaction he craves, you take all his power away. He walks away frustrated, confused, and unable to shake your foundation. The truth is, a man who cannot control his emotions is dangerous, not to others, but to himself. He is a liability in his own life. He loses relationships because he cannot keep his temper in check. He destroys opportunities because he reacts before he thinks. He makes mistakes in moments of anger that cost him more than he realizes. And worst of all, he becomes easy to control. Because the world knows exactly which buttons to press. Do you know why calm men are intimidating? Because they are unreadable. You don't know what they're thinking, you don't know what will push them, you don't know their next move. That kind of control is unsettling to those who lack it. A man who controls himself controls the tone of every interaction. He dictates the pace, the energy, and the outcome. Think about a fight between two warriors. One rushes in, swinging wildly, fueled by emotion. The other waits, watches. He doesn't need to rush. He knows his opponent will tire him out. The emotional man fights with chaos. The controlled man fights with precision, and precision always wins. This is why self-control is not just a discipline. It is a form of dominance. It is a way to move through the world without being swayed by the storms around you. It is the difference between reacting like a pawn and acting like a king. The next time someone tries to provoke you, remember this: they are testing you. They want to see if you are weak enough to be pulled into their chaos. Do not give them the satisfaction. Do not let your emotions be their weapon. Instead, take a breath. Pause. Observe. Let them reveal their hand while you remain steady. Because the man who controls himself, he controls everything. 3. No response is a response. There was a man in my circle, a toxic one. Every conversation with him felt like a trap. He would push, prod, and provoke, trying to get a reaction. He wanted to see me flinch, to see me argue, to see me prove myself, but I never gave him what he wanted. Instead, I chose silence. My lack of response sent a message louder than any words could. You are not worth my energy. And that drove him insane. Sometimes the best move is no move at all. Silence makes people uncomfortable. It forces them to sit with their own words, to hear the weight of what they said without interference. Most people expect an argument, a defense, a fight. But when you respond with nothing, you strip them of the power they think they have over you. Weak men think that shouting proves strength. Strong men know that silence forces the other person to question themselves. A man insults you in front of others, expecting you to lash out, but instead you pause. You look him in the eyes. You let his words hang in the air, unanswered. He expects retaliation. Instead, he gets nothing. That silence, that absence of reaction, it unsettles him. It forces him to second-guess himself, because now the entire room is wondering, why didn't you react? This is why calculated non-response is a form of power. It signals confidence, self-control, and psychological dominance. When you refuse to engage, you shift the burden back onto the other person. You force them to sit with the weight of their own words. You let them reveal more about themselves than they ever intended. Think of a warrior who knows when not to swing his sword. Not every fight is worth engaging in. Sometimes, standing still and watching your opponent exhaust himself is the greatest strategy. In the battlefield of words, the same rule applies. When someone disrespects you, they are testing you. They want to see if they can pull you into their chaos. They want to disrupt your peace. But if you stay silent, you rob them of their satisfaction. This is why Stoics do not engage in meaningless battles. They understand that responding to every insult is like throwing stones at a barking dog. The dog doesn't stop barking. It only barks louder. The more you argue with a fool, the more you start looking like one. A man who cannot ignore insults is a man who lacks discipline. He feels the need to react to every little slight, to defend his ego at every turn. But a true Stoic, he understands that his time, his energy, and his attention are all resources too valuable to waste. He does not waste words on men who do not matter. He does not waste emotions on battles that do not serve him. And here's the truth. Nothing frustrates a weak man more than being ignored by a strong one. Silence is not a weakness. Silence is control. A king does not argue with every peasant who insults him. A lion does not respond to the barking of dogs. A man who speaks only when necessary commands more respect than a man who speaks just to be heard. So, the next time someone tries to pull you into their negativity, take a breath. Hold your ground. Say nothing. Let them wrestle with their own insecurity, because the man who controls himself, he controls everything. 4. The strongest men don't need to prove themselves. What kind of man are you? The one who feels the urge to prove his worth to others? Or the one who moves through life unbothered, secure in who he is, letting his actions speak for themselves? Everywhere you look, you see it. Men desperate for validation. They argue to assert dominance. They brag to seek approval. They flaunt status, wealth, and achievements in a desperate attempt to be admired. But here's the truth. The more you try to prove yourself, the weaker you look. The strongest men in history did not chase respect. They commanded it naturally. Why? Because they understood one thing. Real power is not announced, it is felt. A man who constantly seeks validation is a man who does not believe in his own worth. He craves external approval because deep down he is unsure of himself. He needs reassurance, he needs to be noticed, and he needs others to confirm that he is important. But a man who is truly secure, he doesn't need to say a word. Imagine you are in a meeting. A colleague questions your expertise, challenging your abilities in front of everyone. Most men would feel attacked. They would rush to defend themselves, listing their qualifications, their years of experience, and their past successes. They would fight to prove their worth. But what does a man of true power do? He remains calm. He does not react, he does not argue. Instead, he lets his work speak for itself. Because a man who is truly competent does not need to convince others. He simply performs. This is why you never see the strongest men in the room trying to prove themselves. They do not raise their voices to be heard. They do not need to outshine others to feel important. They do not waste time explaining why they deserve respect. They do not need respect. They command it. Think of a lion in the wild. He does not need to prove that he is the king of the jungle. He does not roar to remind others of his dominance. His mere presence commands respect. His silence is more powerful than another animal's noise. Now contrast that with the men you see flashing their wealth, showing off luxury cars, designer watches, and expensive vacations. They want admiration. They want envy. They want others to look at them and say, "Wow, that man is successful." But what they fail to realize is this: the man who truly has power doesn't need validation from anyone. He does not need to post his achievements online. He does not need to announce his success. He is content knowing who he is, regardless of who is watching. The most powerful man in the room is not the loudest. It is the one whose presence alone shifts the energy. The one who does not seek approval, who does not chase admiration, who does not fight for recognition. He does not need to explain himself because his actions already do. Weak men argue. Weak men explain. Weak men seek validation. The moment you try to prove yourself to someone, you place yourself beneath them. You make their opinion matter. You give them power over you. But when you stop explaining, stop justifying, stop proving, you take all that power back. Think of historical figures: Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus. They did not waste time proving themselves to others. They lived by their principles, unaffected by outside opinions. They understood that seeking approval is a sign of weakness, and that true confidence comes from within. There is nothing more powerful than a man who does not seek approval. A man who knows his worth and lets his actions prove it. A man who does not engage in petty arguments to prove he is right. A man who remains calm while others desperately try to prove themselves. So the next time someone questions your worth, your abilities, or your success, pause. Let them talk. Let them wonder. Let them assume. Because the moment you stop needing to prove yourself, you become untouchable. Real power is knowing that you don't need anyone's approval but your own. 5. Turn insults into confidence. An insult only has power if you let it. The moment you detach from emotion, you strip an insult of its ability to affect you. It becomes weightless, meaningless, just words hanging in the air with nowhere to land. Every act of disrespect is an opportunity to reinforce your belief in yourself. If someone's words shake you, it means you have given them control over how you feel. But if you stay unmoved, you prove that their words hold no weight in your world. The way you handle disrespect is a direct reflection of your personal strength. A weak man takes insults personally. He reacts, he defends, he seeks to prove the other person wrong. But a strong man, he understands that words are only as powerful as the meaning he assigns them. He knows that no one can diminish his worth with a few sentences. Instead of reacting, he uses these moments to reaffirm his confidence. He turns their insult into his advantage. Picture this. You're at work. A colleague smirks and says, "You're not strong enough for this project." Most people would immediately get defensive, trying to list their qualifications and proving their capability. But what if, instead, you leaned back, looked them in the eye, and simply asked, "Oh, and what makes you think that?" That one question shifts the entire power dynamic. Now they are the ones scrambling to explain themselves. Now, the weight of their insult is on their shoulders, not yours. This is the power of detachment, the ability to remain calm when provoked, the ability to see insults for what they are, projections of someone else's insecurity. People who belittle others are often revealing their own fears, their own self-doubt, their own frustrations. A confident man does not insult others because he does not need to. He does not need to tear others down to feel strong. Only weak men do that. Now, imagine another scenario. Someone laughs at you and calls you a failure. Instead of arguing, instead of taking offense, you chuckle and say, "Maybe. Let's check back in 5 years." That response does two things. One, it shows that their words do not control your emotions. 2, it signals quiet confidence. You are so sure of yourself that you don't even need to argue. This is a strategy the Stoics mastered. They understood that emotional reactions give power away. The best response to an insult is not an argument, it is control. It is staying composed when others expect you to break. When someone insults you, they expect anger, they expect defensiveness, they expect a reaction. The moment you refuse to give them what they want, you win. A man who controls his response is a man who controls the entire interaction. Think about it. How often do people insult out of strength? Rarely. Insults are born from weakness, from insecurity, from frustration. A man secure in himself has no need to tear others down. He does not need to throw words like weapons. He is too busy building his own empire to waste time attacking others. This is why the ability to remain unaffected is the ultimate form of dominance. It is why great leaders do not engage in petty disputes. It is why the most respected men in history did not waste time arguing with fools. They knew their worth, and that was enough. So the next time someone insults you, remember, it is never about you, it is about them. Their own doubts, their own insecurities, their own battles that they are trying to project onto you. Do not let them pull you into their world. Stay in yours, stay in control. And if you must respond, do so with confidence. A smirk, a calm, measured question, a light-hearted laugh. These responses communicate one message: you are beneath my energy. Because a man who remains composed in the face of insult, he is the one who truly holds the power. 6. Choose your battles wisely. How many wars have you fought that were never worth it? How many times have you wasted energy proving a point that didn't matter? Not every battle is worth fighting. Some fights are nothing more than distractions, designed to pull you off course, to steal your focus, to drag you into meaningless conflict. The man who fights every battle is not strong, he is reactive. But the man who chooses his battles with precision, he is a strategist. He is in control. Every day you will face provocations. Someone will challenge your intelligence. Someone will insult you online. Someone will try to diminish your success. The weak man engages in every fight. He argues with strangers on the internet. He defends himself against people whose opinions are irrelevant. He seeks to prove his worth to those who never mattered. And in doing so, he spreads himself thin. He wastes time. He plays a game that was never worth playing. But the Stoic? The Stoic understands that silence is sometimes the strongest move, that disengaging is often a display of power, that walking away is not cowardice, it is strategy. Think of a general plan for war. Does he send his entire army into every minor skirmish? Does he waste his best soldiers on battles that hold no strategic value? No. He picks the fights that will matter. He reserves his energy for the wars that will shape his future. You must do the same. Social media. A random stranger insults you online, mocking your intelligence, your work, your appearance. You feel the urge to respond, to defend yourself, to fight back. But what do you gain? Nothing. You give them what they want, your attention, your energy, your time. The smartest move? Ignore them. Let them waste their breath. Because a king does not argue with peasants. Your career. A colleague undermines you and tries to make you look incompetent in front of others. Most men react emotionally. They retaliate. They engage in workplace politics, wasting energy on resentment and payback. But the Stoic? He doesn't play that game. He plays the long game. He focuses on excellence. He dominates through performance, not through petty disputes. When you are undeniably the best at what you do, no attack can weaken you. Your personal life. Someone in your circle constantly tries to provoke you, to pull you into their negativity, to engage you in useless conflict. Most men take the bait. They argue. They fall into emotional traps. But a Stoic? He recognizes the game and refuses to play. He does not allow himself to be emotionally drained by toxic people. Instead, he distances himself and maintains control over his peace. This is why walking away is sometimes the ultimate display of strength. Not because you are weak, not because you fear confrontation, but because you recognize that your energy is valuable. You do not waste it on battles that do not serve you. The greatest warriors in history did not win by fighting every enemy they encountered. They won by choosing their battles with wisdom, by knowing when to strike and when to hold their ground. So before you engage in your next fight, ask yourself, Does this battle move me forward? Does this conflict deserve my time and energy? Will engaging in this fight make me stronger, or will it only drain me? Most of the time, the answer is clear. It is not worth it. A fool fights every battle. A king fights only the ones that matter. Be the king. 7. Time always exposes the truth. A man is betrayed by a close friend. Lies spread, his reputation is questioned, and he feels the urge to defend himself, to confront, to retaliate, to prove his innocence. Instead, he remains silent. He focuses on his work, on his discipline, on what he can control. Months pass. The truth unravels. The very people who doubted him now see reality for what it is. The betrayer reveals his true nature through his own actions, not through arguments. The man who was patient, he emerges stronger, unshaken, and respected. This is the power of time. When someone disrespects you, your first instinct might be to react, to argue, to prove yourself. But the reaction is short-term. Reputation is long-term. Your words at the moment will never carry as much weight as the truth that unfolds over time. The greatest victories in life do not happen through debates or retaliation. They happen in silence. They happen when time does the talking for you. Think about your greatest enemies, the ones who doubted you, mocked you, dismissed you, the ones who tried to discredit your name, to undermine your value. Where are they now? Did their words define you? Or did time prove them wrong? Time is the ultimate test. It will expose your enemies, or it will validate your worth. It will destroy those who build their success on deception, and it will elevate those who stand firm in truth. This is why a Stoic does not rush to defend himself. He does not react emotionally. He does not chase the need to be understood immediately. He plays the long game. A fake friend spreads rumors about you. Most people would try to explain themselves, to fight back, to plead their case. But what happens when you say nothing? What happens when you let time reveal who they truly are? People will start to notice the patterns. The truth will surface. And when it does, your silence will have spoken louder than any words ever could. A boss doubts your abilities. Instead of arguing, instead of justifying yourself, you work in silence. You show up early, you deliver results, and you make yourself undeniable. Time proves your value, not words. A rival questions your success, claiming it was luck. Instead of engaging, you keep building. You stay focused. Years pass, and while they are still talking, you are still winning. This is why true warriors do not waste energy on temporary battles. They know that time is always on the side of the discipline. They know that actions will always outlast words. Many men lose the war because they are too focused on winning the battle. They want immediate validation, immediate recognition, and immediate justice. But the wise man understands that the most powerful victories happen slowly. They are not won in loud arguments. They are won in quiet discipline. When Marcus Aurelius ruled Rome, he was surrounded by betrayal, by politics, by men who sought to undermine him. But did he waste time proving himself to his enemies? No, he simply remained steadfast. He focused on governing with integrity, on being a philosopher king, and on setting an example that could not be denied. And time, not argument, solidified his legacy. The world is full of men who talk, but history only remembers the men who let their work speak for them. So, the next time someone questions you, doubts you, disrespects you, pause. Take a deep breath. Let them talk. Let them assume. Let them underestimate you. Because while they waste their breath, you are building something greater. Something that time will prove undeniable. Time will either expose your enemies or solidify your reputation. Your only job is to stay the course. 8. Lead with quiet dominance. Have you ever noticed that the most powerful man in the room is rarely the loudest? He doesn't demand attention. He doesn't need to prove himself with words. Yet when he speaks, people listen. When he moves, people take notice. This is quiet dominance, the kind of power that doesn't shout but commands respect effortlessly. A man who truly leads doesn't rely on volume, theatrics, or constant explanations. His presence alone speaks for him. He is composed, controlled, and focused. He doesn't need to argue because his actions already prove his worth. He doesn't need validation because he already knows who he is. Weak men over-explain. They seek approval. They raise their voices to assert control. But true dominance is felt, not forced. When you carry yourself with quiet confidence, the world adjusts to you. People instinctively respect a man who is at peace with himself. Imagine walking into a room. One man is talking loudly, boasting about his achievements, trying to dominate the conversation. Another sits back, observing, speaking only when necessary. Who do you respect more? Who do you see as the real leader? Most men believe they need to assert themselves aggressively to gain respect. They think they need to be the center of attention. But in reality, powerful men do the opposite. They listen more than they speak. They act with intention. They control their energy. A king doesn't need to remind his people that he's the ruler. A lion doesn't need to roar to prove his strength. Presence alone is enough. Consider this. Have you ever met someone who explains too much? The moment they feel challenged, they start listing their accomplishments, justifying their opinions, and scrambling to prove they are right. It makes them look weak. A man who is truly secure in himself does not explain. He simply moves forward. He lets his work, his discipline, his results do the talking. The same rule applies to handling disrespect. The moment you start defending yourself unnecessarily, you've already lost. When someone doubts you, you don't argue, you deliver results. When someone questions your worth, you don't explain, you show them through action. Silence, when used correctly, is a power move. The greatest leaders in history, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, led not through forceful words, but through unshakable presence. They were steady, disciplined, and unfazed by noise. They understood that real authority is projected, not performed. So how do you cultivate quiet dominance in your own life? First, control your energy. Don't waste words on meaningless arguments. Don't let emotions dictate your actions. When you master yourself, you master the situation. Second, be selective with your words. When you speak, make it count. A man whose words are measured and intentional holds more power than one who speaks just to be heard. Third, own your presence. Stand tall. Move with purpose. Carry yourself as a man who is sure of himself. People respect what they cannot easily read, and nothing is more unreadable than a man who does not seek approval. The next time you feel the urge to over-explain, to react emotionally, to prove yourself, pause. Let silence do the work. Let your actions speak. Let your presence command the room. Because the man who leads with quiet dominance is the man the world follows. Strength is not in how loud you speak, but in how well you control yourself. It is not in proving your worth to others, but in knowing it deep within. A man who masters his emotions chooses his battles, and leads with quiet dominance is a man who cannot be shaken. Every insult, every act of disrespect, every moment of doubt, it is all a test of your patience, a test of your control, a test of whether you will react like every other man or rise above like the few who understand true power. Remember this. Disrespect is never about you. It is a reflection of them. The moment you internalize this truth, you free yourself from the opinions of others. You stop giving away your power. You stop wasting energy on meaningless fights. Instead, you channel that energy into growth, into action, into becoming unshakable. So take this lesson and use it. Practice composure when you feel the urge to react. Learn to recognize when silence speaks louder than words. Understand that time will always reveal the truth, and that the strongest men don't seek respect, they embody it. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced disrespect that tested your patience? How did you handle it? Drop your story in the comments below. Let's learn from each other. Let's sharpen our discipline, because the man who controls himself, he controls everything.